Okay, guys, so sometime this week, and oddly enough, I can't pinpoint the exact day, I'm not sure, it came up in Facebook notifications. I reached my 2-year anniversary of being here in Vietnam. So I just wanted to give some observations on what I consider my first 2 years, and to talk a little bit about what my next 2 years have in store. So that's next on Jinka Jabo. So, some housekeeping first. To be honest, I'm kind of sick of my intro, the banana peel and the flute and everything. I remember when I came up with that idea, I was in Saigon, downtown Saigon, and I was thinking about the channel, because then I just made my first couple of videos, and I thought it'd be really cool to do something with banana peels, because I love bananas so much, the Vietnamese bananas. So I added that to the channel, but I guess repetition's good. It's just 15 seconds. Little flute music, but I want to do more just directly barking into the camera like this. And with that out of the way, I also want to say that gosh, it's been almost 10 months and I've got a whopping 30 subscribers, and you know what, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of anyone who has taken some time just to listen to me, because the mere fact is, I don't think I would get this much of an audience just standing on a street corner and barking. And the more true to myself I stay, the better it will get, I think. So I know it's incredibly cliche for people to go around saying, talking about, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not making enough videos or whatever, but I was in a pretty good streak for a while there, almost making them every day. But I still look at people like Styx and think, why don't I make several a day? But the rule of once a week, that's just like a bare minimum life support. And to be perfectly honest, it's not really a priority right now, because with each season out here, and I know it seems like the seasons don't change, it sort of feels like a long continual summer in Vietnam. But with each season, I go through this new cycle of meeting new people, finding new work, getting involved in different opportunities, making new friends, and that's certainly true here. Make new friends, but keep the old. Of course, I still have some old friends that I've had since day one, I would but it's great just continuing to form new networks. And just like learning how to drive out here, you know, it's sort of, someone can say the name of a road like Dai Co Viet or Doi Con or something, and I know it instantly, and I can figure out where things are. And that's been a great advantage, again, now with the employment process of just sitting down and talking about different parts of Hanoi and knowing exactly where everything is, and being able to it was James Joyce, appropriately enough, who said that if Dublin were to burn down, he wanted to be able to reconstruct it just using Ulysses, and I think that would be possible. And when it comes time to drafting my own Ulysses, my own opus to Vietnam, I guess I will have to reconstruct all of Hanoi just through my head. But even if you look at photographs from the last 10 years, before I got here, when Hanoi reached its 1,000 year anniversary not long ago, you see new towers springing up. Even one from the view of this rooftop, I've seen new towers sprout up along the skyline. And I've worked all over, up and down the river, around the lakes, north, south, west, east. I know this whole city now. And I'm quite a good driver now. When I first got here, and I don't think my mom will be very happy to hear this, but I got into a lot of accidents, and I scruffed myself up quite a bit, burned myself up, scratched myself, had bruises. Nothing broken, but I did dislocate my shoulder. And that's the other thing that I really have loved about Vietnam, is I don't think otherwise I would have taken up motorbikes, and I would have learned just how thrilling and fun it is to, take a motorcycle over a bridge, passing all the other bikes, all the traffic, just loud and fast and just free. You feel the air hitting you. And it's part of the danger, but the danger makes it fun too when you're just going slightly too fast. And when you're living in a place kind of with blind cops, it reminds me of a great, it was a video game, I don't remember the name of it, but it's one where you're driving a motorbike, and it was back in the 90s, the 16-bit era. And of course, in this game, there was no such thing as getting pulled over by the police or whatever. There are no stoplights or anything like that. And that's sort of been the experience out in Vietnam, without getting too sordid about that. But At the same time, that's just there's the thrilling part of driving, which you have to maintain. You have to believe in that in order to make driving worthwhile, because it's such a big part of the life out here. And like last fall, my schedule broke down somehow to where I was always stuck in traffic for a little while unless I stopped somewhere. So, but even when you wait for an hour or two, it's still pretty bad. It still takes you a while to get way across town when the streets are busy. But at night, it's thrilling. So I never thought I would learn how to ride a motorcycle. Those are actually quite complicated. And the first time I took one out, I was stalling all over. I decided to drive it home in traffic. It was during rush hour. I don't know if I had a choice or what. I should have timed it differently. But, you know, drivers are aggressive, and stalling on a motorcycle when you don't really know how to work a clutch yet is quite difficult. I've rambled about that for so long. Motorcycles. The weather also, it's sort of like every day is summer. And every day is Christmas, too. Christmas decorations stay up all year round. I've pointed that out before. And at the cafe that I go to on the other side of town, I don't work around that part of Hanoi anymore, but they still have Christmas decorations up. You know, and I go there, they've got good, cheap espresso, and it's right next to where I used to work. But even though I no longer have any reason to be in that neighborhood, I often go back. And you know, the last foreign country I lived in before I came to Vietnam was Saudi Arabia. And what really bothered me about that, it wasn't the alcohol, because, you know, I can put that down. And it wasn't even the gender segregation, being without women, because Lord knows I've lived without women before. But it was the lack of music, and just the inability just to go outside and just play music. And that's one thing that I've had out here. In fact, that's what I was doing before I sat down to record this video. And the other day I was playing, and I got some people doing aerobics to it with the you know, I've got the Bluetooth speaker, and I can just go into parks and just have loud MIDI blasting and just play. And that's better than doing any open mics or anything else. And this is maybe the first place. I've done busking, I guess. I've played music outdoors since the very beginning, and I remember having many groans and bad looks. In fact, I've gotten them even here as well. I've hit raw notes. I've played it wrong sometimes, but in Vietnam more than anywhere else, I've had people, you know, actually walk up and hand me money, you know, when I don't have the case open or anything, when I'm not doing that specifically. But that's happened to me a couple of times. Usually drunk bros or something. They're like, "Oh, we like your music," or people doing aerobics to my beat when I got the bass going, when I got some Michael Jackson or something, and that's just been great. That's really given me a boost, and it's made me think that, you know, this is, I mean, for me, music is like the king of the hobbies, because it's all the intensity and challenge and hand-eye coordination of like a video game, but it gives you something that it's like having a new language. It's like having a new power at your disposal. It's having something analog. What's the word I'm looking for? Acoustic. Analog. It's having something acoustic. It's having something that, like with a flute or a guitar, you can just bust it out anywhere and suddenly be creating music, which is something that we always rely on internet connections and electronics and speakers for. When you can just create it, when you can just create a pocket of something it's as good as reading, or is as good as exercise, which is the other thing. Like, I've been exercising more, and I've been getting outside more, and I realized that one thing that kept me so flabby and chubby back in my old Wisconsin days is that the winters were so unbearable that I would get stuck inside. I mean, I did have things like ice skating and so on, or you could arrange things like that, but it wasn't a continual thing. It wasn't like you could just go out and walk. And shortly before I came here, 2 years ago, already 2 years ago, when I was just preparing to leave the country again, I was out in Illinois, the suburbs west of Chicago, and I would walk for like, I checked, it was like 8 or 10 miles a day for a couple weeks. And I was just reading and studying and learning about Vietnam and doing some research, and I was getting fit that way, and I think that I really need to start doing that, because as much as, to tie it back to the earlier point, like as fun as it is to have motorbikes, like that's it's been punishment to my waistline. Just being able to drive anywhere. It's easier just to hop on a motorbike and drive somewhere, because it's so much easier to park, so much easier to put somewhere. It's not the same stress as driving around in a big city like this in a car and having to go to parking ramps and all that. So anyone who visits me, we'll rent you a bike and I'll show you exactly how much fun it is. And don't worry, you just hop on and get going. I did have, unfortunately, the people I've had visit me out here were not so keen on bikes. So if that's one thing, and I wasn't really before I tried it either, but that's one thing that you should consider before coming here. The other thing, I hate to say it, but I'm really not that impressed with Vietnamese food, with Vietnamese dishes. I'm sorry, but the fruits and vegetables are out of this world, and it's stuff that I didn't know existed. And to think that you can be in your 30s and having traveled a bit and suddenly discover all kinds of fruits and vegetables that, I don't know like, for example, there's one called a frog, ek, in Vietnamese, and, well, that's the translation of the Vietnamese is frog. It looks like a frog, a little green apple tomato thing. I don't know what the hell it is. It doesn't look like anything that we eat. Or they have these fruits that have black seeds that you peel off, but they kind of look like artichokes, but they're really sweet. I mean, there aren't words for these things. And so I kind of feel like Columbus in the New World trying to explain all of this great stuff. But you just have to come here and see it. And so this is like, I don't know if that's a deceptive title or what, but I should have said something earlier. But when I say love at first sight, someone was asking me, okay, I had, I've been doing all these work interviews, of course, right? And one question that keeps coming up is, so how do you really feel about Vietnam? What is your long-term plan? And I said, this is love at first sight. This is when I got off the plane and took the bus to the Old Quarter and got out and started walking around. The very first time, before I even got any sleep from a long flight and long overnight in Beijing, I looked around and I thought, yeah, this is it. This is where it's at. This is love at first sight. It's sort of like the first time I ever tasted the Korean dish, kimchi. I loved it right away. Or there are certain things, there are certain moments, external things. And, I've heard it happens with people, and I certainly believe that as well. But this is where it's at. And I just hope I can convince anyone out there who hasn't been here or who isn't here to come here, because you'll love it. Really, it's the best. Peace.